Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast. Really excited to sit down with our guest today, Lenny Gray. He has so many tidbits and just really nuggets of knowledge that he will share with us as it relates to business in general, the door-to-door space, and some of the really neat things that he's been up to the last decade or two. Before we get into that, this episode, as they all are, it's brought to you by my company, Moxie Pest Control. And we are growing. We're growing like many of you are growing. You know, the pandemic was a real difficult thing for a lot of people and a lot of industries. The post-pandemic, as I like to call it, the year or so after, has also been difficult. I don't know that any of us knows what the next few years look like, but we have certainly counted ourselves fortunate in the home service space to be able to grow. Part of the way that we've done that, specifically in Phoenix and some of our other markets like Chicago or Kansas City, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Columbus, has been via acquisition. And so if you are a pest operator, you've got 3, 4, 5 plus trucks on the road, I'd certainly love to talk about you if the time is right. I had lunch with a gentleman just 2 days ago. And I think that probably the most common question that I get when people are looking to get out is now a good time? As I've deeply thought about that question, I always respond, I have no idea. I know that valuations are really, really high right now. They might dip in a year. They might be double what they are in a year. And so none of us really knows. I guess now is as good a time as ever, but that's really a personal decision and a personal choice. So I think that takes a lot of self-reflection to know if the time is right for you. But if you are looking towards that next chapter of your life, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can call me or text me on my cell. It's 480-254-9730. You can email me directly at aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. The other quick plug that I want to do, I was telling Lenny before, both of us had a little bit of time over the last 2 years. He wrote a book that we'll talk about here in a moment. I had the fortunate and unfortunate experience of writing my first book. I co-authored it with Michael E. Gerber. It's the E-Myth Pest Control Business. And we are launching that in Phoenix Thursday, November 3rd. And if that's something that you are interested in, you can reach out to me the same way, but feel free to reach out to me directly. Should be a great night. Michael will be here. We'll keynote it together. It'll be a really positive thing for the industry, I believe, and a really good resource and just a nice night to be able to network. Lenny Gray, he's been in the pest industry for a long, long time. In fact, I think that we entered it the same year. I think you've got a couple of years on me, but we both got into it in 2003. At least in ownership for Lenny, he founded and is the CEO of Rove Pest Control. Before that, he was a phenomenal direct sales person for a larger regional national company and broke probably all the records that are out there. Since then, he has put out 2 books. The first one is Door-to-Door Millionaire. And that went out nearly 10 years ago. He sold more of those copies than he ever thought that he would. And then he just put another one out, more Door-to-Door Millionaire, that went out in the last year or so. And so please check those out. The last few years, he's been spending his time more as a consultant and being able to spread the good word around the door-to-door industry. And not just in pests, but you're doing that, I know, in garage doors and many, many other spaces. And so it's neat to be able to see those skills and how they're transferable to many different industries, not even just home service. And so, Lenny, so glad to have you on. Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Austin. Thank you for the introduction. That was very thorough and kind of you. And yeah, I feel probably like you sometimes, where you start putting those years together and it's like, wow, I've really been doing this a long time. In fact, the first year I knocked doors when I was in college as an undergrad was back in 1998. So a lot of the reps, the new reps getting into the industry, weren't even born when I actually first started this. So it's very odd for me to think how fast time flies.
It is. We use a platform, an HR platform called Zenefits, and anytime we hire someone, the emails come through to me, and it has their name, birthday, some of that information. And the last couple of years, and I'm only 37, I still feel really, really, really young. But it'll say born 1999, born 2002, and I'm like, I'm that old guy now. That I used to point at and look at, and so and it happened just like that overnight. So, well, it's so good to have you on. I was reflecting just the last day or so. We met through a mutual friend, Tommy Mello over at A1 Garage Door Services. I like to joke, his shop in Phoenix or my shop in Phoenix is in between his and the airport. And so the first time I met you, I think that you had flown in. Tommy likes to bring people through our office to either have us meet them or show them different things, or I don't know. But that was the first time, probably about 2 years ago, that we met. And I joke, I used to get a text or a call 2 or 3 minutes ahead of time when Tommy would bring people by, and now he just barges in and he's unapologetic about it. We'll be in important meetings, and he'll just, hey, you got to meet Lenny, he's great, and hey, show him this, and hey, that thing that you're doing with the software. And he's totally great. But I'm glad that he has made that introduction. So how you started in 1998, you founded your own pest control company that's been very successful the last 20 years now. In 2003, what got you into the industry?
Yeah, and it started, and I will say this, just to backtrack on our good friend Tommy Mello. So the great thing about Tommy is, and I think we're a kindred spirit, probably the three of us, in that there's no secrets, there's nothing hidden. When anything that Tommy does, he wants people, he genuinely wants people that are around him and that he has friendships with to be successful. And I love that about him, as I'm sure you do, Austin. And so that's really, as we get deeper into our conversation, that's really what I'm all about. Is I'm all about sharing information. That was my main motivator for writing my books, was, hey, let me just put out there exactly how I've been successful. I don't keep any secrets. When I consult for companies, they get 100% of me and my experience, because I'm not the guy who wants to keep it all to myself. I love it to hear success stories, and when I read reviews on my books or people that I consult with come back with quotes and thoughts on their experience with me, that's what makes me feel successful right now, is just helping other people to succeed. So yeah, just simply, I was brought into the industry back in 1998. As I mentioned, I had a high school buddy of mine. We played football together, and he just said, hey, I'm going to go out and do this door-to-door thing with pest control and go make 20, 30 grand or whatever in a summer. And quite frankly, when he told me that, I just said, I don't believe you. And why don't you do it? And then if it's real and legit, then maybe I'll consider that, next year. And sure enough, that next fall, he called me up and said, hey, I made 25 grand, and I'm going to be managing an office next year for a company out of Alabama, and you need to come sell with me. And so that's really how it all started with me, was being a door-to-door guy.
That's awesome. So it didn't take you very long to move from knocking on the doors into founding your own company and ownership. You did that for 4 or 5 years. What was it in you that said, hey, I can make a career out of this? I can do this on my own. What was that thought process like 20 years ago or so?
It was interesting. So when my wife and I had our first child, he had some complications, just some physical things that, he had an emergency surgery, and he was 3 months old. And at the time, I was traveling a lot. During the summers, the company I was working for, I was literally on the doors with hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, about hundreds of reps in a summer. I would go from one office to the next and knock doors with every one of them or shadow them. And, we had this baby in the middle of the summer. And so I was able to be there, everything was good as far as that goes. But then 3 months later, So fall time, when my travel schedule kind of died down a little bit, our oldest son, who's now, a healthy 20-year-old and living his best life and everything else. But there are some issues there. And so I think I just kind of came to that conclusion, what do I want to be and what do I want to do? And to me, I think as most people, when we want to get into business for ourselves, we do it for freedom, or we do it to be able to make choices for ourselves, even though sometimes we become subject to our business and we're answering emails at all hours of the night, or phone calls or text messages. That's kind of that give or take. But then we also have the freedom as business owners a lot of times to go, make a quick trip somewhere, or, work at various hours that, maybe we're not 9 to 5, but maybe we're 3 to 10 or something. We can kind of juggle our schedules a little bit better. So that's really, I sat down with the owner of this company. I just said, hey, is there a position for me here that wouldn't have me traveling as frequently? I really feel like I'd love to spend more time with my family. And the short answer was nope. That's what you bring to the table, and that's what you do. And so that's the job, take it or leave it. So I left it. And I said, you know what, I'll find somebody that knows pest control, because I'll be completely honest, I didn't know much about pest control. I'd probably serviced, I can count on one hand how many times I'd serviced a home in my 5 years of previous experience. I was the sales guy. And so I had met somebody in the interim. We're still business partners today, McKay Bodley. And, McKay knew pest control. He was running a franchise for an Orkin franchise in Albuquerque. He was starting another one in St. Louis. And we got to talking and said, hey, let's do this. If you know the pests and I know the sales, you can service, I can sell it. Let's get this going. So yeah, in 2003, we both left our positions. The deal was, though, he's an Idaho kid, but the deal was, hey, we got to do it in Salt Lake, where I live. That's what I'm going to do. So literally for 5.5 months, I was out knocking doors 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and he was spraying everything he could potentially, possibly spray that I was selling, and until we started hiring other technicians as we got everybody busy. And I think we did that first year, we did about $500,000 in business, and that just kind of launched us and kicked us off. And then, we started hiring sales reps the next year, and, there the story goes.
And the rest is history. That is, I love hearing stories like that so much. It is so fantastic and inspiring. And because then, knowing a little bit more of the backstory, you and McKay decided to do what you did in 2003. Huge leap of faith, right? Probably just nervous jitters every single day, wondering if you know how to sell anything, even though the previous day you sold 10. And you fast forward to today, and you guys are in a dozen or so markets, very successful company. What along the way, if you can share, what do you feel in the last 20 years as it relates to your pest company? What was your biggest setback, and how did you overcome it? And then what is maybe like a highlight, like something that you're so proud of? Was it opening your second branch? Was it passing that first $1 million mark? Or what? Give us a highlight and a low light over the last 20 years. That's a tough question. There's so much.
There is, I don't know how long we have here. I could talk for a few hours about these things, but it's interesting, as you brought up to start the show, about, people considering selling or acquisition, and when to know when to go or not. As you know, we've had, I think, 7 or 8 acquisitions over our span. So we've been in a lot more markets than we currently are today. But we had to make those decisions for ourselves. And even though we have operating, branches, throughout the nation now, we have sold several of them. And so a lot of times we get asked that question. That's a really difficult part, because you're not just dealing with something, you're dealing with somebody, right? When you're talking about branch managers and technicians, you want to make sure they're getting taken care of and all those things. So finding the right partner, going through that process was so difficult, because it's more than just, well, we're just trying to get the best multiple, it's way more than that. Because again, I've got a cousin of mine, for instance, when we sold our Salt Lake operation, I've got a cousin of mine who was kind of an up and coming, service technician for us. And when we sold this operation in Salt Lake to Service Master, I will tell you that my cousin still works for them, and he's in management. And this was 2007. So this was, 14, 15 years ago. And
Wow.
that brings me a lot of happiness and joy to know my own family. Like I said, I kind of look at that with your business, right? They're your family, they're your employees, they're your people. You want to make sure that you do it with the right person, with the right acquirer. And so just having an experience like that, not just in Salt Lake, but I could go down the list of other states that we've been in where we've been acquired, just to make sure that you do it the right way. So I love what you're doing, Austin, and the process that you have in, trying to make sure it's a right fit, because sometimes it's just not, right? It's just not a right fit for somebody to get out. And I could see somebody like you and somebody like me saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you keep the pedal to the metal right now for a little bit, and let's revisit this in a year or two, when X, Y, and Z happens. So that's probably a difficult thing, just because, you grow these things from nothing, right? I mean, we grew Salt Lake. Like I said, it was the first door I knocked on. I sold these people. I would say their name because I still remember, but I won't on air here. But I sold these people the first door. And then you're right. It was every day starting with zero and having to build a customer base. And it got to the point that first year where McKay, because I was working him like crazy, 6 days a week, doing 8, 9, 10 starts a day. It got to the point where he said, listen, I need Saturdays off. Like, I need to spend time with my family. So you can't work on Fridays. It was basically a mandate. Like, you cannot work on Fridays. So I didn't work Fridays from July till we stopped selling in September, whenever it was. But it was full steam ahead, for us. And so once you have to give those things up or look at potentially giving those things up, and we'd only been in business for 5 years, let alone generational companies that maybe have decades, that they've been in the industry and growing their business, it's tough. Like, it is not an easy decision to do that, because you want to find the right fit. You want to make sure your people are taken care of. So I don't know, for me, that's probably been the most difficult challenge, is just knowing when it makes sense to go down that road and when it makes sense to keep pushing forward. I mean, our headquarters are in the Twin Cities up in Minnesota, and we've been there really since the fall of 2005. So that's our one of our first branches that we ever started outside of Salt Lake. We have chosen not to have that one sold, whereas other ones that were newer or started later have sold. So again, there's just a lot that goes into play. And so I can appreciate the business owner that is going through that and trying to decide, man, is it worth selling now, or what should I do? That's tough.
It's a mental wrestle. It's torture. I mean, there's so many things to consider. And look, people need to get paid. The multiple is very, very important, but it's, at least in my experience, as I talk to business owners, it is not the first thing that's brought up. It's usually my people, my customers. They've bled and sweat and done all that they know how to be able to take care of them and retain them, and the development of their employees. And so that is very, very, very important. Lenny, we both grew up in the same space and same industry, knocking on doors. I think that we probably, getting to know you a little bit more over the last few years, have got similar philosophies, and not the right way and wrong way, but like a good positive way to be able to do that. There is a lot of, I mean, back when I started, I think, and it's an industry that's getting so competitive. I could have never seen this when I started. I mean, I think my pay scale when I started, I was paid out in hugs and high fives, and maybe a lunch or a dinner here. And now the pay scales and the perks and the incentives, they are wild and out of control. And perhaps the market just commands it. But there is a lot of negative connotation associated with the door-to-door industry. And so I would ask you, one, why is that? And then what are some of your ideas or principles about how to do it in a good, positive way?
Yeah, no, great question. So, it's interesting. And I'll share a brief story. So this last summer, I was contacted by a company that I'd actually been contacted months before. And I basically said, okay, hey, I can put together a training program for your company. We can come out and visit, spend 2 or 3 days. They were a new company. They were coming from another industry in the door-to-door world. And they thought, we we're good. We were just looking for some advice on, some what rate cards look like and scope of service and that. But we got this. We're good. Well, fast forward to middle of May, I get called by this company and they said, listen, I don't know if we're going to make it. Like our guys,
we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Things are not going well.
Oh my gosh, right? Like our guys are top selling guys in, the industry that they were in, but they can't sell pest control. And I said, well, I'm not the guy to say I told you so, but if we would have had this conversation 2 or 3 months ago, and I kind of put that out, and literally my summer schedule is cramped. I mean, I'm busy. It's a busy time of year for me and my own companies and my family. We, sports and dance. We got a lot of things going on. So summers are just busy. And I said, listen, I'm sorry, I can't come out. Well, they made an offer that I couldn't refuse. And I said, okay, I'll book 2 days to come down for that. And I spent a day in each of their 2 offices that they had started and just sold the lights out. And I had all their guys shadow me. I set all their company records, not that it was, my own personal records, but it was a lot of accounts that I sold in 2 days. And they're fine now, and it was just like they needed somebody to show them exactly how to do it, who was an expert in the industry, and not just how to do it in a way that nobody could replicate. That's what I pride myself in, Austin, is I do things where I feel like I could teach anybody. I don't need A players to come in to teach them how to do it. Now I can take an A player and make them an A+ player, but I can also take a C, a C- player, and I can make them a B player, because I feel like if I can't be replicated, then I'm not really teaching anything, right? And sometimes you get those personalities, right? There are these people are just all over the place, and they're just one of a kind, right? The Tommies of the world. And it's just like, you cannot replicate that. Like, I'm sorry, that is just its own universe, right? And awesome. And I feel like what I bring value to companies is I teach ways in which you can do it no matter who you are, what your personality is. And so for me, what I think, going back to your original question about the industry, is I think what's happened is you have a lot of people making a lot of money, a lot of great money out there to be made, but then you have people that just aren't replicable, right? And those are the ones that are promoted on the companies. It's like, Joe whoever, he just made $250,000. Well, nobody's going to be Joe whoever, because Joe whoever is a complete rock star and one of a kind. He is, the lead singer of an iconic band, right? He's Steven Tyler. You can't replicate him. He just is who he is. But really, when you talk about the nuts and bolts of a company, it's not the guys that go out and sell that. I mean, they're awesome. And yes, everybody wants them. But at the same time, it's like, how do you get just average guys to be really good? And that's what my program and processes have done over the years. And that's what we do in my company. Like I'm never going to get in a battle where it's like, you've been there where it's like, hey, well, you're going to get a car. Your signing bonus is a new Tesla. So come and work for us. It's like, I'm never going to go that route. I don't need to. It's like, let me just take the guy that really wants to learn and grow and develop a skill that he's going to be, is going to help him or her throughout their entire life. And so that's what we try to do is, and again, here's the crazy secret about growing a pest control company in particular, is as much as door-to-door should be a part of it, it should never be the only part of it, ever.
Absolutely.
My company's to the point now, if I didn't have a single guy knocking doors, we would still grow. And that's the golden goose, because if we talk about acquisition, that's what makes the multiple increase too, because if it's just door-to-door, acquirers, if they're wise enough, do not put the same value on accounts that are just sold door to door versus ones that come organically or through SEO or just through other means of advertising and marketing, right? So yeah, to me, the industry's it's crazy, right? In fact, when I was driving just last week, I had one of my sons with me, and we were driving. I'd picked him up from school. I passed 4 pest control trucks, different companies, from the high school to my house. And I just went, the industry's alive and well, and it's doing some fantastic things. But again, to me, door-to-door should be a part of that. I think every company should have some kind of door-to-door presence, because you're missing out on a customer base that other people are taking advantage of. Because if I'm seeing all these trucks in Salt Lake City, Utah, that are new and I've never heard of their names before, and I've been here nearly my whole life, I can only imagine everywhere else that these companies are just popping up everywhere. So there's a lot of opportunity in the industry for sure.
Yeah, no, thank you. It is not the Wild West, but it has certainly changed from when we were in it. And I tell people the same thing. I mean, door to door is everyone should do it, including my mom. I think everyone should do it, at least for a summer, because you learn so much about yourself. You're able to really find out what you're made of in a real, raw, unique way. And not to mention, I mean, even the guys that are rock stars that sell a bajillion accounts a summer, I mean, they're knocking on 30, 40, 50 doors. And most of their, I mean, you're doing okay and well and having a good summer if you're selling 3 or 4 or 5 accounts a day. And in order to do that, especially if you're not an expert, if you will, or have a lot of finesse, you're knocking a lot of times on 60, 80 doors. And so, I mean, your rejection rate is 80%, 85%, 90%. And if you can figure out how to push through that day after day after day, you're going to figure a couple of things out about life and yourself and people. And not to mention the soft skills that you gain by learning very quickly, because no person is the same behind those doors. You're dealing with someone that is older than you, or younger than you, or grumpier than you, or wealthier than you, or different cultural backgrounds and different educational backgrounds. And so you really learn how to relate to a lot of different people in a way that I just don't know you could replicate quite any other way, maybe besides going to school or education or that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not replicable. And I always say, door to door is like a microcosm of life, right? Like you just don't know what's behind that door, and you don't know what the next conversation is going to be, or there's just so many questions. So yes, I'm a big proponent of just the life lessons that can be learned knocking on doors. And again, I think companies should have that as an offering. They should have some kind of a door-to-door program. It doesn't have to be a $10 million door-to-door program. It can be a $200,000 door-to-door program, and that can grow that company and help that company to again tap into maybe some customers that they otherwise wouldn't with their reach online or in other marketing. That it's raw, right? It's like it's your fingernails are dirty, and it's a raw, gritty environment when you go and do door to door. But you run into people that probably have never thought about doing pest control or whatever service, yet they do it because you've learned a skill set and can create value, build value in the product or service that you're selling. So yeah, like door to door to me it's cool and it's awesome and it's done wonders for me in my life. But as a business owner, I kind of look at it and go, I think for us, one of the things, going back to a previous question, that was the most celebratory time for us, one of the most, was we realized we're going to grow and we don't need door to door guys. Because a door-to-door team is expensive too, right? It's an investment. And some companies, unlike us, when we started, I'm like, I didn't sell for any commission. It was like my company. So I'm selling your spray and McKay, and we're just going to do this. And everything goes into the pot of just, we're going to grow this thing and do what we do. But man, companies that start and they heavily invest in door-to-door, they are running upside down for way too long, because if you're going to compete with the signing bonuses and you're going to compete with the commissions that are getting paid now, just ridiculousness, right? Where to me, it's like, don't put all your eggs in that basket if you can help it. Like, just get yourself in a position where maybe you have, a few guys and gals that are out doing it, but you don't have to break the bank doing it either. I don't think that's wise in the long run.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, especially without that foundation, it is very, very helpful if you're in an industry or a business that's been around and established, and that's something you can layer in. You see so many companies, not even pest specific, but that are there one summer and gone the next because they're trying to blow it up that first year or second year, and it's just not sustainable. You run in the red for far too long, and sometimes it's crippling and too much. And you don't, those 4 trucks that you may not, picking your son up, see the same 4 trucks over the next couple of years. Some of them may not be there anymore.
Here's the secret too. So, I think what happened in the pest control industry, and probably within the last decade, I would say, is everybody saw people were making a lot of money through acquisition. Well, these acquirers, at least the main ones, now there's some PE groups out there that are coming into the space, of course, have been coming into the space. But the major acquirers have been burned so often by these just heavily invested door-to-door marketing companies that, their market is pest control, right? That's where they're pushing their guys.
And they're turned off to it now.
Oh, now they've wised up and said, well, actually, yeah, door-to-door account is weighed this much, but these other accounts are weighed this much. So that's why I think it's important to balance that, like we've said, right? Like you don't want just all your eggs in the basket of door-to-door. It's got to fit in to your business model as we always say, it's like another leg on the chair, right? Like if you just have a chair with one leg, you're not going to balance. You're going to fall over. And that to me is what, if you're just doing door-to-door is. But if I can have door-to-door, I can have strong SEO, I can have some strong marketing campaigns, whether it's traditional advertising or otherwise. Like now all of a sudden I'm growing. I have a commercial team and mergers and acquisition team. I know you guys are doing it, Moxie. Like you guys have so many legs on the chair that it's super solid. If you take a leg out, well, it's fine. You still got other legs that are holding the chair up. And that to me, that's what's so wise. Companies that really want to grow, that want to get the most value if they're looking to exit, if they have a strategy to exit. Well, to me, the more you can grow in a variety of different ways and different facets, the better you're going to be valued, and the more value you're going to be seen at through those acquirers.
And it's safer for an acquirer. I've got a question for you, Lenny, because I think that some of those traditional acquirers, they have definitely wised up to things. Do you think as more PE money is coming into the market, do you think that they will not be burned, but do you think a lot of them kind of know what's going on, or do you think that they know the same things that some of these traditional pest acquirers know? Or do you think they just have so much money, it's like, boom, let's just go buy that company and we'll see what we can do with it, and we'll buy this one the next day and this one? What do you think happens there?
So I think it's interesting, right? Because if you read, Adam Coffey's, the guy who wrote the private equity playbook, I believe, and other books, and you listen to his material or read his material, and you find out that, 20 years ago, there were, 30 private equity companies, and now there's thousands of them, right? And so just like anything, the more you have of something, there's just going to be these outliers that, probably gamble on things, and maybe because they have the money to do it, or maybe just they don't have the knowledge. And you would think when you're playing with other people's money, so to speak, that you'd take that responsibility to really dive into something before you just start, throwing it out the window. But, who knows? There's so many.
It doesn't seem like anyone is financially or fiscally responsible anymore. It's just keep printing it, right? Keep printing it.
That's true. It's true. So I think there definitely have been mistakes made. There'll probably continue to be mistakes made in that space, just because, the due diligence isn't there. They're not historically wise to what's happened in the industry, over the last decade or two. There'll always be mistakes. And like they say, again, if you're a business owner and you can find the right person, you only need one person to believe in you, just like they say in sports, right? You just need one team to think you're worth, this many millions. And as long as that one team pays you, then
there you go.
There's probably some mistakes that have been made and will continue to be made in that. And that's life, I guess.
Well, Lenny, this has been awesome, and we didn't get to even half the stuff that I wanted to ask about. But as we round this out, you're definitely involved in your pest control company still, but you are not, from at least as it appears to me, involved very much in the day-to-day. You're doing a lot more speaking, consulting, those sorts of things now. Who is your, and I'd love to have you on another time to talk about that piece of your professional life, but who is your ideal consulting client right now? Are you looking to consult with everybody? Is it people just in the home service space? Who do you enjoy consulting with?
You know what? I like consulting with good people. So I know that might sound a little cliche, but I really do. I love meeting Tommy, right? And opening my eyes to an industry I've never thought 2 seconds about. right? As far as that goes. But that being said, I've got clients of mine right now that are in insurance, in finance. I mean, it's all over the board of people that are really trying to figure out processes to build a door-to-door program, I would say. And it doesn't have to be door-to-door sales either. There's such things as door-to-door marketing. I talk about that on my social media a lot, where you just go out and you're marketing your things for hopes of a future sale, right? And so door-to-door, again, as granular as door-to-door is, it doesn't just have to be we're making a sale at the door, because sometimes people just aren't built for that, right? No matter what, even if I got my hands on them and showed them exactly what they needed to say and do, there's just some people that skill set to go sell
not their
something,
thing. Yep.
It's just not their thing. And that's totally fine. Like I tell people all the time that, maybe quit a little early or don't keep their commitment to sell. It's like, dude, this is just door to door. Like, who cares? Like the world's still your oyster. Like if you just can't do one thing in the world, don't think you can't do anything else, because it's just door to door. So if you can just have the desire and the will to go knock on a door, like there's opportunities there that don't necessarily have to do with sales. So my ideal client is just somebody I enjoy, that somebody is in love with their company, somebody who is really looking for a way to throw some gas on the fire of growth, and really just open to the idea of putting together a door-to-door program that's going to help them accelerate whatever their plans are for growth and for the future.
Wonderful. Lenny, thank you so much for your time. I know it's very limited and very valuable, and I appreciate you carving out an hour or so this morning to be able to visit with me and my audience. If people want and need to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that? Whether it's for your consultancy, agency and company, or you in general, do they find you on LinkedIn or email you, or how do they do that?
Yeah, several ways. I'm out there on all most all the social platforms. My email address is lenny@d2dmillionaire.com. I've got a website, lennygray.com. Those are probably the best ways to reach out to me. And again, for me, I schedule on my website. I'm going through a website. We're kind of redoing some things, so it's kind of a little under construction right now. It's still functioning, but it's not what it will be probably here in the next couple of weeks. But what I'm doing right now is I'm just scheduling 15-minute consultation calls for free, just for anybody that is interested in just finding out if door-to-door is a fit for their company. And I'm not going to beat around the bush and tell them it is if it's not. Like, I've had plenty of conversations over the last decades where I've told people, yeah, don't do it, and this is why. But if it's the right fit, then I want to, obviously tell that and maybe paint a picture of what that looks like for somebody that is interested in putting together some kind of door-to-door program. So that to me is I'm always happy to schedule that. I've got time reserved every week to consult and just offer some advice for people. Some of my clients, it's not like I have a one size fits all either. Some of my clients I talk to weekly, some monthly. Some, like Tommy, want me in there all the time and to put the whole thing together. And so I kind of leave it open to the business owners, to the management team, the executive teams, to say, this is what we need. Should we do it? Should we not do it? These are our challenges. And we just, we look at each case individually and go, this may or may not be a good fit, but you just never know until you know, right? And so I feel like I'm somebody that's going to give an honest, critical theory-based feedback that's going to be, over experience and over time that I've been doing this in consulting, where, if it's not a good fit, I'm just going to tell you. But if it's a good fit, we're gonna paint that picture of exactly what you need to do.
No, I love it. Lenny, thank you so much. Thank you for all the good, positive things you're doing for the, not just pest industry, but many, many industries, and being the guy that you are. It's very much appreciated. So thank you. And thank you all for being on. I appreciate the audience and appreciate the emails and texts that I get just kind of out of the blue. It's been really fun to interact with not each one of you, but those that reach out. So continue to do so. These will drop every Thursday. Lenny's will be out in just a couple of weeks. And really appreciate you tuning in and listening. Until the next one, create a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.